find your poopy. The camera? Oh, that's my phone telling me that I'm streaming. Ay, 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 ay. Ew. What's up? I could just pray on the first one. Sound good? Yeah, this is a good time to also like open up your lunchbox and stuff like that. All right. You ready? All right. Do we need to put like headphones on or anything so that we just hear me? Or are we good with the sound? Okay. King Jesus, your holy wonderful amazing. Thank you for your death and resurrection. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for this amazing, glorious gift of the writing of the ancients. Thank you that we have access to it, access to in our common vernacular tongue. You're a good. Thank you for how your writing is even when the people who cling to you die. When they die, it's not for naught. Like you, how you orchestrated human evil to be redeemed. Because you just know how humans are. And humans don't respond generally towards worshiping you through plagues and through harsh judgment, but by the word and the testimony of your servants and by the sacrificial life and death of you and your servants. So please reveal to us always on how we can live this. Wonderful, awesome name. Amen. You can't get away from God. Amos chapter 9, verses 1 through 15. I saw the Lord standing by the altar. He said, strike the capitals so the thresholds shake. Break them off onto the head of all of them. The last of them I shall slay with the sword. Not one of them will flee as a fugitive. No escapee will escape. If they dig into Sheol, from there my hand will get them. If they go up into the heavens, I shall bring them down. If they hide on the top of Carmel, from there I shall search them out and get them. If they conceal themselves from before my eyes, at the bottom of the sea, from there I shall command the serpent, and it will bite them. If they go into captivity before their enemies, from there I shall command the sword, and it will slay them. I shall set my eye on them for evil, not for good. The Lord Yahweh armies, he touched the earth and it melts, and all the people live in it mourn, and all of it rises like the Nile, sinks like Egypt's Nile. He built his loft into the heavens, and founded his structure on the earth. The one who summons the sea's waters and pours them over the face of the earth. Yahweh is his name. Aren't you like the Sunnis to me, Israelites? Yahweh's declaration. Didn't I bring Israel up from the country of Egypt, and the Philistines from Caphtor in Syria and from Quir? There. The Lord Yahweh's eyes are on the offending kingdom. I destroyed it from on the face of the earth, except that I shall not totally destroy Jacob's household. And here's the hope now. Except that I shall not totally destroy Jacob's kingdom. Yahweh's declaration, because here I am, I'm going to command and shake Israel's household among all the nations. As someone shakes in a sieve, no pebble falls to the earth. All the offenders in my people will die by the sword. The people who say the evil won't reach or meet us. On that day, I shall raise David's fallen bivouac and repair its breaches. I shall raise its ruins and build it as in days of old. So they'll enter into possession what remains of Edom, and all the nations that were called by my name, a declaration of Yahweh who is going to do this. Their days are coming, Yahweh's declaration. The plowman will meet the reaper, the treader of grapes, the one trailing the seed. The mountains will drop sweet wine, all the hills will flow. I shall restore the fortunes of my people Israel. They'll build up ruined cities and live there. They'll plant vineyard and drink their wine. They'll make gardens and eat their fruits. I shall plant them on their soil, and they won't uproot again. From on their soil, which I have given them, Yahweh your God has said. So here we have, like, their compromise. Again, like, these things, like, Yahweh is always wanting to show mercy. He's calling on them to repent. But again, throughout compromise, they decide not to. And he's like, all right, my face is against you. But then he says he's not going to utterly destroy them, right? And so in the very end, we're seeing Eden, where when Yahweh's rule is full and complete, we'll each live under our own fig tree, grow gardens. The Eden narrative will be life. More than once, I have been involved in a day of prayer when the theme passage of scripture has been Psalm 139, which speaks of God being able to reach us wherever we are and knowing all about us. These things can be an encouragement on such occasions, though it's noticeable that people then usually stop the reading of Psalm before the darker part at the end, which speaks of God slaying the wicked and makes one wonder whether God knowingly all about us and being able to reach us wherever we are is necessarily good news. Amos uses, so in Psalm 139, it talks about how, like, no matter what, Yahweh's love and presence is at, but there is, like, for anyone who compromises and especially destroy the innocent, that same thing goes about his judgment. He will find you where you're at. Amos uses the same phrase as a psalm in his final attempt to scare the Ephraimites into turning from the destructive path they're walking. Imagine you could dig into Sheol, the place where dead people are, or climb into the heavens. Climb to the top of Mount Carmel. Not the highest mountain Ephraim, but a spectacular one because of the way it soars from the ocean and the plain on either side of it. Or dive into the bottom of the sea. You couldn't get away from God's judgments. Amos has one more vision to share. And in this last vision, there's no more talk of even the possibility of God passing over the people. In this vision, Amos sees a sanctuary thrown down. How can Yahweh act in that way to his own people? The tough answer is that if you don't behave like God's people, you can't expect to be treated like God's people. So you hear that, clincher? So the question is, how can Yahweh act in that way to his own people? The tough answer is that if you don't behave like God's people, you can't expect to be treated like God's people. God brought the Israelites from Egypt, but also brought the Philistines from across the Mediterranean and the Syrians from somewhere in the opposite direction. We don't know exactly what location Kaftor and Klur refers to. It's quite a claim about God's sovereignty and the lives of people that are more Israel's foes than his friends, and it's quite a put down for Ephraim itself. Whatever is the kingdom does wrong, it may find itself in trouble, and being Israel may not make you an exception. Or maybe it'll make you an exception. The Philistines disappeared. Israel didn't. In Israel's case, Yahweh commits himself to a judgment that involves separating the wheat from the chaff. He has made a commitment to Israel, and he can't get out of it. But it's still the case that people in Israel can't expect to get away with things. Israel may go on, most Israelites won't. You still can't simply assume you'll be okay because you belong. Amos' warnings to Ephraim came true when Samaria fell to the Assyrians in summer 22, and its population was transported. The book of Amos closes with another qualification of the idea that God might totally destroy Israel, which some of his prophecies might seem to be implied. The book began with Zion, and it closes with David. If Amos uttered these words in Ephraim itself, it again implicitly reminds Ephraim that it has no further future except in association with Zion as the place Yahweh chose, and with David as the king Yahweh chose. There'll come a time when David's line is cut down, and a time when the nation can have their way with Judah, and when the Edomites in particular can take over much of Judah's land. But these events won't be the end of the story. From time to time, the book of Amos has warned potential readers in Judah that they can't afford to act superior in relation to Ephraim, because Jerusalem escaped conquest by Assyria when Ephraim was conquered. given that Judah is involved in the same contempt for Yahweh as Ephraim. And in due course, Jerusalem indeed falls. But the close of the book also offers encouragement to them. It's not the end of the story. All right, the section, that's one. You want to read another section or do Bible Project? Yeah, but it's still part of the larger book. Yeah. So do you want to just read this next section or we do Bible Project? Okay. So for second, Bible Project. Sweet Q. Oh yeah. Isaiah, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah. So actually we're right here in our reading. Isn't that funny? Okay, so did we do Nahum? Oh, yeah, we did. I think we're at Habakkuk. That's right. This is a great book. He's like completely thrown off what Yahweh's doing. He's like, what? When like, it's like, I'm going to use Babylon to destroy the Israelites for their wickedness. He's like, what? Babylon's even worse. You're using wicked people to judge wicked people? What are you doing?
The book of the prophet Habakkuk. He lived during the final decades of Israel's southern kingdom, and it was a time of injustice.
There we go.
The book of the prophet Habakkuk. He lived during the final decades of Israel's southern kingdom, and it was a time of injustice and idolatry. He saw the rising threat of Babylon on the horizon, and that was not good news for anybody. But unlike the other prophets, Habakkuk does not accuse Israel. He doesn't even speak on God's behalf to the people. Rather, all of his words are addressed personally to God. And the book tells about Habakkuk's personal struggle, his journey of trying to believe that God is good when there is so much evil and tragedy in the world. And so Habakkuk's words are actually poems of lament, and they're very similar to the laments that you find in the book of Psalms. The poet lodges a complaint and then draws God's attention to suffering or injustice in the world, demanding that God do something. And knowing about this lament form, it's actually the key to understanding the design and message of this short book. Chapters 1 and 2 are framed as a back-and-forth argument between Habakkuk and God. And the prophet lodges two complaints to which God offers two responses. His first complaint is that life in Israel has become horrible. The Torah is neglected, resulting in violence and injustice, and it's all being tolerated by Israel's corrupt leaders. And Habakkuk, he's crying out, asking God to do something, but nothing seems to change. But then all of a sudden, God responds. He says that he's very aware of the corruption of his own people, Israel, and that he's summoning the armies of Babylon to bring down his justice on Israel. And very similar to the message of Micah or Isaiah, God says he will use this terrifying empire to devour Israel because of their injustice and evil. But Habakkuk has a problem with this answer, and so he offers his second complaint. He says Babylon is even worse than Israel. They're more corrupt, they're more violent, they've deified their own military power, they treat humans like animals, gathering them up like fish in a net, he says. They devour nations and people groups in order to build their own empire. And so Habakkuk says, how can you, a holy, good God, use such corrupt nations as your instruments in history? He demands an explanation. In fact, he depicts himself as a watchman on the city walls, waiting for God's response, which eventually comes. God tells Habakkuk to get out some tablets and chisel and write down what he sees and hears. It's a vision about an appointed time in the future, that even though it may seem slow in coming, it will eventually come. In fact, God says that the righteous person will live by their faith in this hope and vision. So what is this divine promise that Habakkuk is supposed to write down? It's that God will bring Babylon down. God says that the violence and oppression of the nations creates this never-ending cycle of revenge, and that God will use this cycle to bring about the rise and fall of nations. And the fact that God might for a time use a corrupt nation like Babylon does not mean that he endorses everything that they do. He holds all nations accountable to his justice, and so Babylon will fall along with any other nation that acts like them. God's promise is then elaborated by a series of 5 woes that describe the kinds of oppression and injustice that's perpetrated by nations like Babylon. The first 2 target unjust economic practices, like how wealthy people will charge ridiculous interest just to keep poor people in debt, and so they build their wealth through crooked means. The third woe is a critique of slave labor, treating humans like animals and threatening them with violence if they don't produce. The fourth woe targets the abuse of alcohol by irresponsible leaders. While people are suffering under their bad leadership, they're partying and wasting their money on sex and booze. And the last woe exposes idolatry, the engine that drives such nations. They have made money and power and national security into their gods, offering these allegiance at all costs. And so people become slaves to their own national empire. Now, the practices described here aren't unique to Babylon, but that's part of the point. Given the human condition, most nations eventually become Babylon. And so this is how God's answer to Habakkuk in this book becomes God's answer to all later generations, to anyone who lives in a world ruled by other Babylons. But it leaves the question hanging. Is God going to let this cycle, the rise and fall of Babylon-like empires, go on forever? And that question is what chapter 3 is about. We're told that this is a prayer of Habakkuk, and it begins by Habakkuk pleading with God to act now in the present like he has in the past in bringing down corrupt nations. And what follows is a very ancient poem. It first describes a powerful, terrifying appearance of God. It's very similar to the opening poems of Micah and Nahum, and similar to the appearance of God at Mount Sinai in the book of Exodus. There's cloud and fire and earthquake. When the Creator shows up to confront human evil, everybody will be paying attention. Habakkuk then goes on to describe this future defeat of evil as a future exodus. So just like God came as a warrior and he split the sea in his battle against Pharaoh, Habakkuk says that God will once more bring his judgment down on the head of the evil house. So Pharaoh, like Babylon, has become here an archetype of violent human nations. But at the same time, we're told that when God confronts evil, he will save his people and his anointed one. It's a reference to the king from the line of David. And so in this poem, the Exodus story of the past has become an image of the future Exodus God will perform. He will once again defeat evil and bring down the pharaohs and the Babylons of this world. He'll bring justice to all people and rescue the oppressed and the innocent. And it's this hope that enables Habakkuk to conclude the book with hopeful praise. Even if the world's falling apart with food shortage or drought or war or whatever, he will choose trust and joy in the covenant promises of God. And so Habakkuk, by the end of this book, becomes a shining example of how the righteous live by faith. Habakkuk recognizes just how dark and chaotic the world and our lives can become, and he invites us into a journey of faith, of trusting that God loves this world more than we do, and that he will one day deal with its evil. And that's what the book of Habakkuk is all about.
All right, so Habakkuk, it's interesting. It's just like no direct prophecy to what we get for the most Israelites, right? And so he's like, look at the injustice happening in the land. Torah neglected, which, again, following Yahweh. Hey, friend, can you play with that over there? Can you play with that over there? Thank you. So, the Torah is neglected, which, again, following Yahweh is, well, not following Yahweh makes bad stuff happen. Yeah. But following Yahweh should call you to love the poor, take care, take care of your neighbor. Like, loving God, loving neighbor are two sides of the same coin. And so then here, like he's like, oh yeah, like I hear your complaint. Look what's happening. I'm raising the Babylons. He's like, what?
What did you say?
Because they're wicked. But he's like, even in their pride, just because he uses them as a means doesn't mean he endorses them. Because all nations are accountable to God's justice. And here's the 5 woes: the oppressive injustice of Babylon. They do unjust economics. They do like just practices to keep the poor. They use slave labor. They instead of like having an eye for all these terrible things, their brain is completely smashed with, yeah, like they're inebriated, which inebriation like makes you just lost in the sauce. And there's idolatry, which are like their gods. They upheld, the gods are all about war, especially the ancient gods, like especially those ancient gods of the Canaanites. Like they want the blood of their enemies. And they want like the status of power and privilege. Like the king, like these gods are not for the poor. These like the kings will see themselves as incarnations of these gods, just so that they could uphold their power and say what's right and wrong. And so then here is Habakkuk's prayer. He's looking forward to the day that when Yahweh will deal with all evil, there will be a true future exodus where the remnant and your anointed people. So you know who the anointed one is, right? He's the Mashiach. And so here we have them being saved, and then look forward to a day where again everyone will live under a fig tree, again the Garden of Eden, longing. But even when things are terrible because of these unjust practices, I will still find joy in Yahweh. And that's how the righteous shall be living under faith. All right, so that's the second part. Okay, Obadiah. Nope. I mean, if we finish this whole thing, yes. Obadiah. Who could bring me down to earth? Obadiah's vision. The Lord Yahweh said this about Edom. We have heard a report from Yahweh. An envoy has been sent out among the nations. Rise up. Let's rise up against it for battle. Now, I'm making you small among the nations. You're going to be very despised. The arrogance of your mind has deceived you. You who dwell in the clefts of the crag, the height of its abode, you're saying within yourself, who could bring me down to earth? So, remember, this is about the Edomites, right? So we watched this Bible project. You remember Obadiah, the Bible project? So there's the Edom. And what's crazy is we're going to see in the writing how Edom sounds a lot like Adam. And so he's using ninja writing to say this is actually going to be an answer against all prideful nations. All right. And actually, I think, yeah, this is we're literally right now going to finish the book of Obadiah. It's this small. Isn't that crazy? This is the book of Obadiah. It's only 21 verses. And then boom, Jonah. This is well, we have to finish this. This is Daniel and 12 prophets.
Yeah, I know, but I can talk about do we have to finish the whole entire Daniel and 12 prophets for you to do that?
Yep. Yep. That's how we always do it. Like Matthew for everyone, part 1. We finish Matthew for everyone, part 1 to do special things. Yeah, this is Obadiah's vision. This is only 21 verses of his vision. But we're going to see the delight of it. Who could bring me down to earth? Okay, Obadiah's vision. The Lord Yahweh said this about Edom. We have heard a report from Yahweh. An envoy has been sent out among the nations. Rise up. Let's rise up against it for battle. Now I'm making you small among the nations. You're going to be very despised. The arrogance of your mind has deceived you, you who dwell in the clefts of the crag, the height of its abode. You're saying within yourself, who could bring me down to earth? If you go up high like an eagle, if you place your nest among the stars, from there I could bring you down. Yahweh's declaration. If thieves came to you, if robbers came by night, how you're ruined. Wouldn't they steal what they needed? If grape pickers came to you, wouldn't they leave gleaming? How Esau is being ransacked, its treasure sought out. All the people you were in covenant with are sending you off to the border. The people you were allied with are deceiving you, overpowering you. The people who eat your bread set a trap beneath you. It has no understanding. On that day, Yahweh's declaration, shall I not eliminate the exports from Edom? Understanding from Mount Esau? Your warriors will be shattered, Timon. So people will be cut off from Mount Esau through slaughter. Through the violence to your brother Jacob, shame will cover you, and you'll be cut off forever. On the day you stood aside, on the day foreigners captured his resources, and aliens came into his gates and cast lots for Jerusalem, you too were like one of them. You shouldn't have looked in that way at your brother's day, the day that this alien thing happened to him. You shouldn't have rejoiced at the Judahites on the day of their perishing. You shouldn't have talked big on the day of distress. You shouldn't have come into my people's gate on the day of their disaster. You shouldn't have looked in that way, you too, at the evil that happened to him on the day of his disaster. You shouldn't have stood at the crossroad to cut down his escapees. You shouldn't have handed over his survivors on the day of distress, because Yahweh's day is near. Against all the nations, as you did, it'll be done to you. Your deed will come back upon your head. Because as you, Judahites, drank on my sacred mountain, all the nations will drink continually. They'll drink and swallow, and they'll be as if they had never been. But on Mount Zion, there'll be a group of survivors. So, you ready? But on Mount Zion, there'll be a group of survivors, and it will be holy. Jacob's household will dispossess the people who dispossess them. Jacob's household will become a fire. Joseph's household a flame. Esau's household straw, and they'll burn among them, consume them. Esau's household will have no survivor, because Yahweh has spoken. The Negev will possess Mount Esau. The lowland will possess the Philistines. They'll possess the Ephraimite country, that is the Samarian country, and Benjamin will possess Gilead. This exile community of forces belonging to the Israelites will possess what belongs to the Canaanites as far as Seraphat. The exile community from Jerusalem, which is in Sepharad, will possess the cities of the Negev. Deliverers will go up on Mount Zion to govern Mount Esau, and the kingship will belong to Yahweh. The news reported last week that the number of refugees in the world steadily increased and their plight worsens. No one wants refugees to settle in the countries where they now are, neither the host countries nor the people themselves. Yet 3/4 of the refugee groups registered by the United Nations have been in exile for 5 years or more. The grandchildren of Palestinians who fled from what became the State of Israel more than 60 years ago still hold onto the keys of their family's home. People long to go home and wish out of existence the people who now occupy their home and farm their fields. Ironically, Obadiah presupposed such an experience on the part of Israel's own ancestors. Presumably, this prophecy was not the only one Obadiah ever uttered, but apparently the community recognized this one to be really important. One can guess at the reason. The book presupposes a time much later than Amos, which, if follows, the fall of Jerusalem and the exile of Judah have now happened. But in them, it links with the ending of Amos with a reference to Edom, Israel's neighbors to the southeast. Israel is aware of a family link with Edom. Israel traced its ancestry back to Edom, back to Jacob, and Edom's ancestry back to Jacob's big brother Esau. Hence the prophecy's reference to Esau. Timon was also another name for Edom. Obadiah opening reference to what he has heard may connect with the substantial overlap between Obadiah and Jeremiah 49. The prophet is preaching a sermon on an earlier text, applying Yahweh's earlier word to a later day. The prophets refer a number of times to Edom's wrongful treatment of Judah. We don't have Edom's version of events, but it's plausible to think of the Babylonians engaging Edomite support in their attack on Jerusalem and or to imagine Edom having an eye to the main chance for itself. Whereas the Old Testament refers to Yahweh's using Ammon and Moab to chastise Judah, it makes no such excuses for Edom. More certainly, the exile and succeeding decades saw gradual Edomite occupation of Judah's southern territory. Yahweh's promise through Obadiah is that Edom won't go unpunished. Its takeover of Judahite land won't continue forever, as Mary puts it in Luke 1. Lifting up the people who have been down has as the other side of the coin putting down the people in power. Obadiah draws attention to the two of Edom's assets that Edom won't actually be able to rely on: its mountainous position and its learning. Edom has a reputation for learning that would find expression in practical expertise. The way Edom has a thorn in Judah's side in the period after the exile might be enough to explain the focus on Edom here and elsewhere in the prophets. Yet later, Edom became a cipher for a nation that opposes Yahweh's purpose, such as Rome, like Babylon in the New Testament. The transition to talk about the nations toward the end of the prophecy hint at a similar understanding here. The drink to which Obadiah refers is a cup of poison. Similar, Obadiah generalizes the promises concerning Judah. In the period after the exile, Judah is a sad little people, under pressure from all sides. The wider notion of Israel could see to have no future. Yahweh promises it has one. It will regain its land not only from Edom, but from Philistia to the west and from the Canaanites or Phoenicians to the northeast. Sepharad perhaps refers to a Jewish community in Turkey in the period after the exile. Ephraim or Samaria was a gray area. The people there might claim to be worshippers of Yahweh, but the Judahites were not sure they could be trusted religiously or politically. The renewed Israel embraced them too. But the last word concerns Yahweh's reigning in the world. Not Edom, not Judah, not Israel, not a Davidic king, but Yahweh. Right? Jonah, chapter 1, verse 1, chapter 2, verse 10. How to pray from inside a fish. So remember Jonah's story? Yahweh was like, hey, go tell the Assyrians that their time is coming. And he's like, nope. He runs the other way. Because he didn't want the Assyrians to experience Yahweh's repentance. Yahweh's message came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Set off, go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim against it, because their evil has come up before me. Before Jonah set off to flee to Tarshish from before Yahweh, he went down to Yaffo and found a ship going to Tarshish, where Tarshish is literally the opposite direction to Nineveh. Paid its fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish from before Yahweh. But Yahweh flung a great wind into the sea, and there was a great storm in the sea, and the ship threatened to break it. The sailors were afraid and cried out, each of them to his God. They flung the things in the ship into the sea and lightened it of them, while Jonah went down into the innermost part of the vessel, lay down, and went to sleep. But the captain went to see him and said to him, what are you doing sleeping? Get up, call on your God. Perhaps the God will give a thought to us, and we shall not perish. People said to each other, come on, let's cast lots so we can know on whose account this evil has come to us. They cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. They said to him, will you tell us on whose account this evil has come to us? What's your work? Where do you come from? What's your country? What people are you from? He said to him, so it's crazy because remember, he's running away from Yahweh. And so Yahweh puts a storm on, and they're like, praying fervently, please don't like everyone start praying to your gods, and they start casting lots. Like maybe one of us is a big compromiser. And so now he does it's like me like quoting my theology like degree. This is what he does. You ready? He said to them, I'm a Hebrew. I revere Yahweh, the God of the heavens, who made the sea and the dry lands. The men were greatly afraid, said to him, what is this you have done? When they knew that he was fleeing from before Yahweh, because he told them, they said to him, one second, I'll grab my drink. I'm getting thirsty with all this reading. hear him spouting his theology education. He said to him, I'm a Hebrew. I revere Yahweh, the God of the heavens, who made the sea and the dry land. The men were greatly afraid and said to him, What is this you have done? When they knew that he was fleeing from before Yahweh, because he told them, they said to him, What shall we do to you so that the sea may quiet down from upon us? When the sea was growing stormier, he said to them, Pick me up and hurl me into the sea, and the sea will quiet down from upon you, because I acknowledge that it was on my account that this great storm came upon you. He has no remorse that his actions are putting these other people's lives in danger. And so here they're trying to keep him alive. The men rowed to get back to dry land, but couldn't because the sea was growing stormier upon them. They called to Yahweh, Oh Yahweh, may we not perish for this man's life. Don't set innocent blood upon us, because you, Yahweh, as you wish, you have acted. They picked Jonah up and hurled him into the sea, and the sea stopped raging. The men greatly revered Yahweh and made a sacrifice to Yahweh and made vows. Yahweh provided a big fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the fish's inside 3 days and 3 nights. Jonas prayed to Yahweh his God from the fish inside. So he's like, all right, I'm going to do what you want. It's not really repenting, but he's like, all right, thanks for saying. Yep. Lots of sorry, but not sorry. I called out of my distress to Yahweh, and he answered. When I called for help from Sheol's belly, you listened to my voice. You threw me into the deep, into the heart of the sea. The river surrounded me. All your breakers and waves passed over me. I myself said, I have been driven away from in front of your eyes. Yet I shall again look toward your sacred palace. The waters overwhelmed me up to my neck. The deep surrounded me. Reed was wrapped around my head at the roots of the mountain. I went down into the earth. Its bars were about me forever. But you brought my life up from the pit, Yahweh my God. When my life was ebbing away from me, I was mindful, Yahweh. My plea came to you, to your sacred palace. People who pay regard to empty vanities forsake their commitment. But with a voice of thanksgiving will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed I shall fulfill. Deliverance belongs to Yahweh. Yahweh spoke to the fish and then vomited Jonah onto the dry land. Quite an epic story. Last night, it was the final class of the term, and for 3 students, it was the end of their time at seminary. 2 of them don't know what they'll be doing next, which is reason for some anxiety. Will I miss God's call? Yet the bigger challenge is the possibility that I may deliberately invade God's call. The rector of one of the most flourishing churches in the north of England used to acknowledge that he should never have been there. God had wanted him to go and work abroad, but he had resisted the call. Of course, when we do so, God often rolls his eyes and calls us to something else and blesses our work, as had happened to this rector's life. There's this idea, Char, that there is this job that's destined for me. It's chosen in the stars. And usually we say then God chose a job for us. But even when we disobey Yahweh's call, by us setting our face towards him, he's always wanting a lavish blessing. So we don't have to be so strung on whatever this initial calling is. The idea is to always focus on Yahweh. Nice. I like to picture God rolling his eyes at Jonah when he boarded his ship going the opposite direction from the one to which God pointed. In his case, God doesn't give him a different calling and find someone else to go to Nineveh. Sometimes you can get away from God's call. Sometimes you can't. Why did Jonah resist? The second half of his story will explain. Preaching judgment to Nineveh, the capital of Syria, may result in its repenting. Indeed, Jonah knows that the reason God must have forsaken him to preach judgment is a desire to find an excuse for canceling the judgments. Jonah doesn't want judgment on the great Assyrian oppressors to be canceled. So any time of preaching of judgment on a nation, the hope is they repent. That is the the intent. And so by him running away, he wants the judgment to happen, and there be no chance whatsoever of that judgment being dismissed. As Obadiah falls nicely on Amos, then Jonah falls nicely on Obadiah. Obadiah, so this is Obadiah, remember we just read before about Edom, right? Obadiah witnesses to God's toughness. Jonah to God's desire to show mercy. Jonah wishes he were Obadiah. His story warns Israel not to get too attached to Obadiah's theme. In this story, he continues to show his lack of insight into the truth about God. The pagan sailors understand more than he does, even as they too have some pretty primitive ideas. Jonah was a prophet to whom Yahweh gave promises about Ephraim regaining territory it had lost. He lived in the decades just before Amos and Hosea, and he's thus the first of the prophets to have a book named after him. But his book differs from theirs in being a story about him, not a collection of his prophecies. I assume it's just a story, like one of Jesus' parables. But the reason for that assumption isn't that it's impossible to survive for 3 days inside a fish, the kind of lot Jonah himself would have indulged in. Of course, Yahweh, the God of the heavens, who made the sea and the dry land, as Jonah magnificently calls him, could prefer someone inside of a fish. The reason is rather the jokey nature of his story. It resembles one of Jesus' parables. The reason for telling this story about Jonah is that a prophet who gave such a positive promise to Ephraim is the last kind of person to enthuse over Nineveh escaping God's judgments. Readers can be so preoccupied with the big fish that they miss the significance of the prayer Jonah prays when he's inside it. How does one imagine Jonah praying there? One might have thought he'd be saying, "Help, help, help," and sorry, sorry, sorry. He's saying neither of those things. He's saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." The fish is his means of salvation, God's means of getting him back from the middle of the Mediterranean to dry land. So he doesn't need to plead for help. His prayer is a thanksgiving, like one's in the Psalms. It wouldn't have been out of place there. For Jonah, the peril of the deep was all too literal. But in his prayer, this talk has become a metaphor, as it is in the Psalms. Like a Thanksgiving psalm, his thanksgiving recalls the peril he was in and speaks of the way death seemed inevitable. It was as if he was already in Sheol. He recalls his hopelessness and recalls the way he prayed, and he knows that his prayer did reach Yahweh in his heavenly dwelling. He recalls the way Yahweh answered, and he speaks of the confidence he now feels of being able to come to the earthly temple to meet with God again. In the Psalms, people often give thanks to God for their deliverance, but even when it's promised but yet not yet implemented, which is appropriate the way Jonah gives thanks. But is there an irony in the prayer? Does his failure to say sorry, sorry, sorry suggest that he still has a lot to learn? All right, friend, we can start. All right, hey, love, I'm done reading. That's fine. I knew, I knew the environment it was going to be.
What's through here? Corrupted machines. Patrolling like guards.
More like soldiers. Held in reserve for a war yet to come. You'll have to get past them.
This is the easy way in?
The back way in. I didn't say it'd be easy.
They're scanning for me.
They're scanning for me. I have never been pregnant. Yes, we could. Oh, this girl has never been pregnant in this game. Maybe she said out.
Explosions in the distance.
Pay that no mind. Doesn't concern you.
she gets getting hurt by the corruption. That's when I drink this. It helps with the corruption defense. Nope. Trying to get to over there where that yellow dot is. That's where I'm trying to get to, but these bad guys are in my way.
Getting close now. Head for that ridge.
Well, it's time to eat, Sweet Q.
Oh, that's just the top. Now be ready to act fast. You need to get in and get it done before they raise an alarm. Here we go.
You getting this? I see the legs of a tall neck down there, but no tall neck.
Damn. The transmitter's been moved. Check down the ravine to the left. Only place it could be.
So much for your insider knowledge. Toward the explosions. Great.
You've got exactly one shot at this, Aloy, so spare the sarcasm and make it count. You see that bridge over the ravine?
Yep.
Memorize its location. There's a rappel point on the side. That'll be your way out.
And these Eclipse troopers?
Avoid them or kill them, your choice. The blasting should cover any noise you make. Find the tall neck and destroy the module on top.
Here we go.
Your end is come.
They're still looking.
Got one right here. Don't let it end. Head down. Damn, lost him.
Is there fighting up ahead?
No. It's a mining operation. So long as you're quick, it won't affect you.
Oh good, another secret. is this place?
A distraction.
There are several data points.
So long as King Itamen languishes at Sunfall, coddled by his mother, he will never learn the true lessons of the sun. I have tried to instruct him, but the shadow of his mother's influence is upon him. I took him to the palace balcony to behold an offering of sacrifice in the ring, but he showed no thirst for it. He averted his gaze. Look to the sun, I told him. Do not shield your eyes. In all things, it is absolute. One day, it nurtures life, and the next, scorches life away. It burns the skin of champions and wretches alike. Never does the sun show pity. That is the example a Sun King must follow. The example of your father. But before my instruction could take hold, she was there, clutching him to her robes, burying his face against her breast. How is a king to rule when he cannot even see? My lord, the 13th king of the Karja Sundom was murdered, cut down by cowards who mistook firm rule for madness. Ever the strong are beset upon by the weak. So he said, as the traitors launched their assault, as their cannons forged by Oseram filth toppled the battlements and burst the gates. I would have fought to the end, but it was his will, the will of the sun, that I lead the prince and queen into the west, to safety. My lord did not hesitate. He saw his fate. He looked into the sun, and he did not blink. With me, he sent kestrels, nobles, sun priests, and slaves. Killing all that stood in the way, I carved a path to Sunfall. There, we joined others to gather the strength to take back our home. But our strength only faded, until the buried shadow was brought to light.
The mirror of Meridian and the spire.
When I first set eyes on the buried shadow, I trembled. Was I not the chosen of the sun? A blazing light of faith to shred and scatter darkness? Was it not my place to destroy this devil? But High Priest Bahavas instructed me in the prophecy, and set right my frame of mind. The murder of the true Sun King broke the cosmic cycle short of completion. The whole world cast into darkness, doomed. To resume and turn the wheel of time would require more than sun and faith. All forces must combine, all halves of nature join to one cause. Shadow to sun, night to day. Even a buried shadow wants the wheel to turn, for without a sun in the sky, there can be no shadow. Never does the sun show pity. And yet, when my wife died in birthing, and in dying ended the life of my child unborn, I pitied myself. My lord sensed this, but instead of casting me down for weakness, he cast upon me a radiant beam of honor. He ordered my kin buried in the sacred caves reserved for royals and heroes. Unimaginable. Never again would I doubt that I am the chosen of the sun. Never again would pity find a place in me. Not for myself or another. When sleep refuses to come, I think of our wedding night. How you welcomed me to the marital bed. How after, when you fell asleep, I lay there watching your delicate face. For all its beauty, I detested its fragility. A rage swelled up inside me. I abhorred that bed, how its softness threatened to swallow us up. And that room, the stench of incense, the fine embroidery of the drapes, all of it weak. I slipped from the bed, threw open the casement, and lay naked on the stone floor, determined to spurn all seductions of comfort. But when I woke the next morning, you lay beside me, naked as I in the cold. Your body, stretched beside mine, seemed chiseled from stone. I saw you wake, instantly alert, like an animal ready to strike. You said nothing. You did not have to. Already you had shown me beyond doubt that we were meant to be. Every morning, I wake to the same nightmare. The same reality. Holy Meridian, in the hands of profligates. Debased. The spire, towering above the horizon like a glittering spike through the center of my mind. Every daybreak in exile is a mark of failure.
The ground
The
here
count
looks
of
turned
days
up.
runs thin.
Drag marks leading towards their
I
gate.
will see Meridian
The gate's
retaken.
barred.
The
No getting
profligates
past that.
slaughtered.
You'll have to
A
find
true
another way.
king restored to the Mesa throne. In this, I have become an instrument of prophecy.
He's a fanatic, all right. Single-minded.
It gives him a focus that you seem to lack. Now how about finding that turtleneck?
I see it. They've built some kind of structure around it.
Climb it. The sooner this is done, the better.
I don't like this. It feels wrong.
Everything here is wrong. Just get to the module and destroy it.
I see the module.
Good. Now be quick.
This is Hades?
Aloy, this is not the time.
It's a metal devil.
Open the module's casing, now. Aloy, do as I say or all is lost.
Entity has come here. Entity miscalculated. Entity cannot destroy me. I am beyond its reach.
Maybe you are. But this isn't!
Destroy the entity.
Keep running!
This looks easy.
Keep moving.
Yeah, you... Think? What do you think I'm doing? Taking a nap? Ah! Talk about brave trail. What?
Head left, towards your head.
Got it. Almost out of it.
Home base is on high alert.
Yeah, I noticed.
Fight back! Down you all!
Keep moving or you'll die. Watch out for eclipse.
Bridge in sight.
That's the way out.
No.
Rough going, but you survived.
You knew Hades was there and you sent me to him?
I won't deny I risked your life, but it was the only way. Now, with the focus network down, we can both get what we want. Access to the secrets of Zero Dawn.
I'm past trusting you with secrets.
Good. That means you're wising up. Trust is for fools. It shifts and crumbles like sand. A poor foundation for any partnership. But mutual self-interest, now that is a solid bedrock upon which you and I might build a new science of understanding. We both need answers, Aloy. And thanks to you, we're on the verge of grasping them. At sunfall, we'll speak again.
You miserable... Damn him. If I...
Sunfall. The Mad King Duran's summer palace. A bulwark of Carja might against the howling Forbidden West.
Thanks for the history lesson.
But they have no idea what lies beneath. We will learn much from this Aloy.
That's what I'm hoping. She's very pale. Is she unwell?
Yes. She's a fighter, but the fever on her won't lift. It only burns hotter. Her name is Shiana, my sister.
Isn't there anyone in Sunfall who can help?
We're refugees. We know our place. And there's only one healer in the territory. He's... difficult. His soul is in shadow.
His soul is in shadow.
Galiv. That's him. He's very clever, but he has little care for people. Perhaps the desert scoured it all away. Perhaps he was always like that. Either way, I know he won't help us.
Well, I'll see about that. Where would I find him?
Last I heard, he was patching up soldiers at Blazon Arch. Another border battle.
Are you Galeev? The healer?
I had planned to spend the day gazing at the lands of my exile and feeling sorry for myself, but you're not from Sunfall, so this could be interesting.
I came from the tent city there. There's a sick girl. Her brother told me about you.
The answer is no.
What?
No, I can't spare the medicine, nor my time to administer it. My resources are already spread thin, thin as the soiled cloths I have to use for dressings.
You're kind of an ass, healer.
There's no cure for a conscience, but in this line of work, I've built up an immunity to it. And yet, if you feel so strongly about this one girl, perhaps we can make a deal. My charity for a Thunderjaw heart.
That's not how charity works.
It is how deals work. You'd settle my debts. For a while.
I already have the part.
Wow, we could already have a deal. Quickly now, let's salve your poor conscience.
See to the girl, and it's yours. Not before.
Oh, please. On my oath, this girl will survive to see our sad future. You and I shouldn't be seen together. Go on to the slums ahead of me. I'll find you presently. You do stand out in a crowd.
It's you. Hello again.
I've brought someone to see your sister.
How did you... What did we do to deserve... No. Wait. I don't even want to ask, in case a shadow passes over and it's gone.
Smart boy.
She'll have his full attention, won't she?
Once I'm freed of other distractions, yes.
Ceasefire will boost morale in Sunfall. The sun knows we need it.
The Sun Ring. A proud tradition of the Carja.
It's not like this in Meridian. At least, not anymore.
Give them time. I'm sure that now we get to see if your attack on their focus network was entirely successful. Success. Welcome to the Citadel, Aloy. I'll check back with you in a moment.
Outlander,
Meantime,
if you want to
sit
hear
tight.
about today's bounties, head for the throne room. You're not going to make any shards by standing out here.
Shadow Carja are looking for one of their own. Should pay well.
By the glory of the sun revealed. Behold, radiant Edaman, the one true Sun King. The light in shadow, whose will is light and whose light is law!
I command Lucius Bahavas to speak in my behalf.
By the will of radiant Edaman does the sun glare down mercilessly upon the traitor Uthid. To the hunter who brings his head to us shall go a bounty of 500 shards.
More prisoners than royalty, don't you think? Love your hair. You and I need to chat, little huntress. The green tent down in Shadowside. I'll be waiting.
Kinda busy.
We both know you're no killer for hire. Uthid is innocent. So come see me while there's still time to save him.
So, the way in I spoke of is right behind you.
You've got to be kidding.
Not at all. And you needn't worry about the Kestrels. They'll be too busy acting important to pay attention to you.
First time in the Citadel, gotta see the Sun Ring from on high.
Well, the
Kestrels. Ah, they want us to see this, boy. It makes quite an impression.
This is insane.
Hardly.
They're going to see me.
You underestimate the ease of hiding in plain sight.
The food is from Dowager Queen Nasadi, little ones. Her Highness knows times are hard and helps when she can. Eat, but bring some home for your families, if you have one. I've heard whispers about you. Rides machines, fancy spear, delightful freckles. Some even say you have a conscience. How extraordinary.
Who are you? You're obviously not one of the Shadow Carja.
My name is Vanasha. For now, all you need to know is that I'm a whisper of reason in this howling pit of insanity.
I know how that feels.
I'm sure you do. And so does Uthid. He's a good man, so naturally the Shadow Carja want to murder him. I've done some digging, and I think he's headed for the Green Climb. It won't take those mercenaries long to find him. He could use some help, if you're so inclined.
I'll do what I can for Uthid. But what about you?
What about me what?
What will you do while I risk my life?
Useful things, little huntress. Look for 3 dead trees south of Sunfall. They mark the start of the Green Climb. Good luck.
Alright, hey, after that mission, we gotta go through step, okay?
Dust feels like pain on my skin. Never know when I might need these. Three dead trees, just like Menashe said. These tracks lead up that rise. Must be the green climb. Foot tracks stop here. Time to climb. All right, made it. Where did you go, Uthid? Food scraps. I'll bet Uthid stopped to see if he was being followed. He must have kept going. I've got to catch up. A dead machine. Uthid's been hunting. Everything useful has been stripped. Uthid's been gathering components, probably for ammo. Montauk's. I'm going to scavenge. Can my focus show me anything? Where'd he go from here? Took down a Ravager. Not an easy kill, but worth it for the parts. Dead Watchers. More scrap for Uthid's stockpile.
The next one doesn't miss.
Uthid?
Huh? That's a good question. You think everyone game you expect to have grenades, you know? They actually add like like a little grit, and also like you can modify grenades. That'd be fun.
You're young for a bounty hunter. Or am I old for a soldier?
I'm not here for the price on your head, Uthid. I believe you're innocent.
Innocent? Come on then. If this is a trick, it's a good one. You've earned your kill.
No tricks. Just talk.
All right. Speak.
I want to know what happened at Sunfall. What really happened.
All right. For weeks, each dawn in the tent city came with a new death. Always in their sleep, no struggle. The old, the infirm, sometimes the young. Those who couldn't fight for the cause. I should have realized then it was a culling.
Who would do such a thing?
They thought it was a curse, an evil spirit. But it was only a man. And a silent poison. It took time to catch him, but we did. We brought him before Bahavas for the sun's judgment.
The High Priest Bahavas? He's the one who put the bounty on you.
Yes. He thanked me for my diligence, then had his guards release the villain. You see? It was he who ordered the culling. Then they turned on us. Should have died with my men, so their loyalty meant something. 20 years I gave to the sun. For what? Malice and murder? As for honor, sacrifice, true sacrifice, the kind priests and rulers know nothing of? It's all a fat joke.
If it's honor you seek, the Sun Karjas seem trustworthy. A little stuck up, maybe, but trustworthy.
Those Karja once raided your Nora lands. Raided every land we could reach. It was the Sun's will. I did what I was told. Others did worse. But as their captain, I had...
Uthid, I don't care what you did. I can't absolve you. But the Karja are changing their ways. You could too.
Perhaps. Avad doesn't understand what the Sun demands of its soldiers.
Perhaps he understands it too well.
Now you sound like the blameless Murad.
I can believe you're a good man. But why go with the Shadow Karja in the first place? Why serve them?
Because of Itaman, of course. He was the one true Sun King.
Itaman's just a child.
Yes, an untainted vessel. I believed he was pure. But they used him. Used our faith. I can see that now. No shadows under a noonday sun. Bahavas didn't need to disgrace my name. I did it myself, serving a rotten throne.
I met someone who wants to get you out of this. A woman named Vanasha. But first, we need to get you out of here.
What are you? You look like a hunter. You give orders like a soldier who's been out... Mercenaries. Think they'll all line up to tell me I'm innocent?
Should have stayed on the plains, Kaja! The mountains belong to us! Kikuk's killers! When we're done with you, you won't even leave an echo!
You didn't make it hard to be followed. Almost as if you wanted to go out in a showdown.
Not much gets by you.
Help me, fools! Keep
up the attack. We still got another squad on the way.
Regroup! Ah!
To you now, man. Rally. We can still finish them. Move in! We'll send the rest as soon as they arrive.
That won't be the last. Follow me. I've stashed supplies up above.
Yeah, this is useful.
Huh? Okay. I am. I'm proud of you of the great purging. All right, my friend.